What's up, everyone? Welcome to Metalcore Nerds. I'm Sean Mott, your host. Joined with me, as he has been for the past few weeks, Tyler Small. What is up, my man?
What's up, buddy? It's chilling. So it's my first COVID birthday. Well, I guess my second one. No, first one. Yeah, my last happened right before the pandemic. Yeah, so just chilling.
First off, happy birthday! I was surprised our birthdays were so close.
Well, we just missed yours, right? It was a couple days ago.
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Yep.
Yeah, so a few days ago. So yeah, it was my first COVID birthday too. Last year I was in Disney, and
that's better.
A lot different. A lot better. That is for sure. Obviously, this is going to come out the day after your birthday, but still recording it. So birthday wishes are in order. If you're new to the podcast, if you're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, just subscribe. That helps out the show more than anything. And if you haven't watched WandaVision Season 5, here's the warning. Spoiler warning. We're going to talk about everything involved. So if you want to watch this, I would love if you did, but I would watch the episode first, then come back, or we're just going to ruin everything for you. So, so this episode, pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts.
Definitely the best episode so far.
Yeah, it's the longest episode, and they packed a lot in, too. It didn't even feel that long when I was watching it, because everything just happened so fast. I really liked my general thoughts. I really liked how they finally mixed the, because we got all the sitcom world,
yep.
And then we got the full sword episode, well, mostly full sword episode, and now we have, like, the mix between both, which I'm liking a lot. They're balancing it very well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it felt the most like the MCU yet.
I agree. I agree 100%. Like last week was like, oh, okay, this is very MCU feeling, because the first episodes are very jarring if you're expecting an MCU show. I loved it, especially now. Like now, all the dark undertones are becoming more apparent, and everyone's like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like I get where they were going, and it's.
Yeah, all the internet is like all the people who are just like too lazy and stubborn to watch it are now all bandwagon it. Like everybody's got to watch WandaVision. I'm like, yeah, because you saw like that one spoiler and now you care. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean it's all right. As long as they get him back, it's. Yeah, I just don't like people judging stuff before they know the full picture. That's what.
Yeah,
that was what I was saying in the beginning. I was like, I can understand if you're not really into it, but like, give it time. Like, let it be done before you judge the full thing. Like, these are. It's like an episodic movie, basically. So you gotta take it a week at a time and see where it goes. But yeah, this episode starts off with a cold opening, like classic '80s trope for a sitcom, and we get the babies won't stop crying. Wanda and Vision are trying to do everything to get them to stop crying. Even Wanda herself tries to make them stop crying, like she's controlling them, but it doesn't work. It's like another time where her thinking she can control something and it doesn't work, like the stork. And so that's interesting. We'll get more into the control thing as we go through this episode for sure. And then, of course, Agnes shows up out of nowhere just as soon as Wanda needs her.
Convenient.
Yeah, very, very, very convenient.
Twice, because of the doghouse, too.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. Yep. She's like always there whenever she needs her. I mean, it happened in the first episode with the dinner and everything like that. She always shows up when Wanda needs her. And we're obviously kind of, especially Vision kind of second guesses her handling the babies. And then she's like, so do you want me to start that over? Do you want me to take it from the top? And like there's so many jarring moments in this series that I love. Like, obviously they're done very much on purpose. But like it's just like a normal sitcom pretty much with two Avengers. They're obviously doing like superhero-y stuff in it, but it's very sitcom feel. And then she's just like, do you want me to take it from the top? And they're both like, what's going on? Like even Wanda, like I saw like a cool theory that there's almost like two Wandas. Like there's the director Wanda kind of pulling some of the strings. We'll get into more of some of the strings later too. And then there's like Wanda playing her role in this world. It's it's like she's becoming more and more aware of what's actually going on, I think, because I think in the first two episodes she really didn't know what was going on, maybe until the beekeeper, and she was like no, and then rewound it. It's like all these like cracks in the reality or whatever are the more they come undone, the more like aware of what actually is going on she's becoming, I think. I don't really know. Like
it's hard because, and then like I don't know. It almost felt like Agnes was like, well, it's like she's on cue because like for a second you almost think Agnes is like monitoring her, but then you realize that Agnes is just doing what she's told. You know, so and it's and then you wonder like I don't know, man. It's I don't. It's like I feel we're gonna. I don't want to jump around too much before we get to that topic.
Right. Exactly. And Agnes is trying to help him, but Vision's fully talking to Wanda like, what is happening? Like, you didn't notice what she said? Like, that was super weird. Like, what is going on here? Like, Vision is like completely aware. Oh, also on the previously seen on, we saw a third version of that interaction with her and Vision after she fucking boots Wanda out of the bubble. Because she said, she was like, Monica didn't belong here or something along the lines of that. I don't think that's the exact quote, but it was, we've seen 3 different versions, which is also interesting because it's like, you see what happens on the TV. You kind of saw what really happened to Wanda. And then we see another version too. Pretty weird. I don't know what's up with that yet.
Yeah. But I mean, I just feel like normally I keep saying this, but it's like normally I'm so quick to like have all these like, oh, I get this, I know what they're doing in theories, and like this show just fucking like every time I get more theory, it's like I keep ending up with like different theories or more theories, but I really feel like I really know.
I know they answer some questions, and it's not even. Some of it are questions to do with the show. Some are questions to do with the MCU overall. But as they're answering like one thing, they ask like 2 or 3 or more questions than that. It's this unraveling thing. Like they know what we're going to think from what they put in front of us. Obviously, from last week's episode, like every nerd YouTube podcast, like everything on the board was everything we've been saying.
Yeah.
They knew we were going to do that. So they know how this is all going to go. Like I feel like they're just tricking us through this whole thing, and we'll get to more of that at the end too. Like there's so much.
Like the hexagons, I don't think mean anything. I think it was just an excuse for them to start calling shit hex magic.
Yeah. I was gonna say that when we got to that part, that was like a cool nod, and that was one of the things. There was like a million theories. You know, it was AIM. 6 infinity stones or 6 sides to a hexagon, hex magic itself. Hive mind, because they're all kind of being controlled by like a something, you know, there's so many, and I still don't really know the answer to the hexagons. It could just be the hex magic thing for sure. Yeah, maybe I don't know.
Like I don't know, man. It all seems way too out of AIM's depth though. It definitely it feels supernatural. It doesn't feel science based.
I think it's the opposite. They're almost explaining everything in a scientific way, which is what the MCU does. Like, I'm interested to, like, yeah,
coming from like the mythical corner of the MCU.
Yeah, it's just weird because they always root it in science, you know. So it's like,
well, it's how they made it believable, you know.
Yeah,
it's how
the Mephisto talk is like, is it really Mephisto? I don't know. We'll get more into that a little later because there's obviously some crazy theories about Mephisto still. So, you know, WandaVision are having that conversation of them not being on the same page, and Agnes is doing all this weird shit with the babies, and then Vision goes, "Do you hear that?" It's completely silent, and they turn around. The kids are fucking 5. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I guess how are they going to get Wiccan and Speed? Oh, that's how it's like.
yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, they're 5 now, cool. Which is kind of a sitcom trope in itself. Because it's like season 1, they're babies, and season 2, they're like children, just like this. You know, they're like they go from a baby to a 5-year-old. I mean, obviously they sped it up pretty fast, but and then Agnes says, "Kids can't control them, no matter how hard you try," and that's 2, like them saying control or mentioning control in the beginning before the intro video even rolls. So that's interesting too. This whole thing of control, and it's especially with Wanda.
It's also when you realize that like Agnes like doesn't really acknowledge or care that there's like supernatural shit going on.
Yeah. Like obviously, kids going from babies to 5-year-olds is pretty insane to not like say anything other than just be like, kids can't control them.
I know it's every time they do something fucking wacky, everyone's just like, what do you know? Like, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. And then we go into the intro, which is awesome. It's so awesome. It's a mix of family ties. Yeah, a mix of family ties, growing pains, and there's even a few shots that were very Full House, like the close-up shot when they're running and the picnic shot and stuff like that. It's funny because most of these intro stuff were filmed at Universal in California, and Sam and I took a tour of that, and it's like where Friends was filmed and like a ton of other big shows. So it's like I've been there where they filmed most of the intro shots. Is pretty cool. One of the podcasts I listened to, one of their guests, she used to do the tours. So she was like, yeah, like that's definitely that spot. And after she mentioned it, I was like, oh shit, it is. Because after you see it in person, it's so much easier to place it when you see it in a TV show. It's just crazy how they frame TV shows to make things seem so much bigger or so much different just from framing and shooting techniques and everything like that. So but once you're like there, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. You know,
movie magic is weird like that. I remember when I first moved to like Las Vegas, where my old band was for a couple of years. I remember just being like, man, like almost every movie I've seen in Vegas, like doesn't even take place where you think, like they'll like walk in, they'll like be on Fremont Street and then walk through a door and end up somewhere on the Strip, and those two places are miles and miles away from each other. Like it's just really funny. And you realize, and they're like going down the road, and then you see all this stuff on the side of the road on the Strip, and I'm like, that it doesn't even exist anymore. That's in a different town, like all sorts of shit.
Right. Movie magic, classic. But I loved Vision's baby photos.
Yeah, that was kind of creepy.
I mean, a little. I thought it was funny.
It was funny, but it was weird for sure.
I was like, oh fuck, Baby Vision, because obviously Baby Vision didn't exist, or Teenage Vision doing fucking crazy math and science problems on a chalkboard. Like, you know, it's funny. It was funny, and even Wanda's pictures, like the one of her like a teenage. Yeah, they were actually hers. They just added stuff in the background. Like you can see the Sokovian flag in the background. And the one looks like this terrible alleyway in Sokovia with like graffiti, like war graffiti and stuff. And she's just like, yeah, you know, I'm like,
it's
all right.
It's kind of funny with the Full House references too, because Elizabeth Olsen's sisters are the Olsen twins. Which is kind of
that was a fun fact that I found out. You know, I mean, obviously internet information. But they actually asked her to come and play her sister's role in the Fuller House reboot. And I was like, damn. But she turned it down. I'm guessing she probably still is close with her sisters or something. I don't know any of that stuff. But that would have been kind of shitty to have been like, yeah, sure, I'll play my sisters, you know? Like, unless they were cool with it.
I'm a way better actress with a way better career, so I might as well.
At this point, definitely, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I was gonna get into that later, but like her range in the show is nuts, insane.
She's been one of my she was one of my big actress crushes for a long time when she was super unknown. Like, so when she got cast as Scarlet Witch, like I was already really hyped because I just loved her. Like, she's never been really big. Like she was always one of my favorites, and like so now I have like one of my favorite actresses playing one of my favorite Marvel characters, and then like getting to see her really like get, because it's like in the movies, you know, I feel like it took some convincing with everyone to really have everyone grow on her, and now she's really become like this super important focal point character that she always needed to be, and she deserves it, and she earned it. And when she came out of the fucking vortex and was being all evil and shit, I was like, whoa, like this is like the range, and like the accent was fully back, and I was like, this is Age of Ultron Wanda, like.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like her and Bettany both are knocking it out of. I mean, everyone in the show, honestly, like, even like the super side characters, they're all like super. Like to do this kind of thing is insanely difficult. You know, like this whole you're living in a sitcom, but you're also like being brain manipulated and shit. It's fucking crazy. But we get out of the intro and we get back into Sword, and it's Monica being looked over. Interesting thing about her scan is that it shows up white. I'm wondering if either she already had her powers, like we said before, or somehow she got her powers from what happened in there. Because obviously they're talking about there's all this CMBR. It's, you know, created from the same radiation as the Infinity Stone, and the Infinity Stones, you know, activated Wanda's powers.
Yeah,
exactly how Captain Marvel got her powers. So it's like, did it give her powers? I'm very interested to see if we get that reveal by the end. I think we might. So I thought that was a cool little reference. And Darcy saying she was a big fan. Is that because of the sword stuff or what? Because I wouldn't really think that sword stuff is that like newsworthy, but maybe it is. I don't know.
You mean like a big fan of Monica?
Yeah, because when she comes in, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Darcy. I'm a huge fan." And it's like,
yeah, I mean, I feel like if she
you
already had powers, she wouldn't be working a desk job or whatever the fuck she's doing. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. You're right. Yeah.
Must be going on though, because when they're having the whole, and I like how they before I bring this up, I like how they validated all our fan talking about. I like how they actually brought up the whole like Wanda could have killed Thanos. He's like, well, Captain Marvel almost killed Thanos, but when she says Captain Marvel, Monica looks kind of upset.
Yeah, like, I was gonna get to that in a little bit. We'll revisit that. Yeah, so no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. We get to the briefing, and Hayward's kind of painting Wanda in this malicious light, like she's a terrorist. And I do love how when Jimmy's like, that's an oversimplification of things, and he goes over to Darcy and is like, I don't like to speak ill will of people, and she's like, I will. That guy's she's gonna say dick, but they cut and it says terrorist. That guy's a terrorist. There's something going on with this motherfucker, for sure. I don't like He's definitely not a good guy, and we'll get more into this after, but the whole thing with this footage that she shows, this happened 9 days ago. He says, like, I get the, like, oh, it was super secret information, so this is why I can show you now, but why didn't he himself go after Wanda if he know that she went in and stole Vision? You just let two of the strongest Avengers just go for over a week.
Yeah.
And that also, like, this whole thing with her sending Monica to this thing, like, he knew what was going on or something. Like, he knows way too much for him to just be a normal thing. And that was kind of my AIM thing. Like, and I know it's kind of, I talked about this before, it'd be kind of like whatever to, like, AIM have infiltrated SWORD already because, you know, it's the same thing with Hydra and SHIELD, but they also had the blip. Like, Nick Fury was gone. Half of SWORD was gone. You know, Monica's mom, Maria, died 2 years into the blip. Like, the founder of SWORD died. So it's like I don't know. I think I'm just holding on to the same thing.
Well, no, I think so. It could explain the Hexagon thing. Like, they're somehow involved in this from the beginning, and they were somehow helping stage it. It's possible that it's AIM and Mephisto or AIM and whatever. I think the only problem I have with that, I think to redo the whole infiltrated SHIELD trope all over again would be kind of dumb to do all. That's right. My issue with it is purely like, I don't think they should do that. They should go that route. Yeah. It does seem there is evidence to support that theory, though. I just don't. I
completely. That's my qualm with it too, and I'm like holding on to it so hard, and I'm like, but the whole thing. So that's why I'm trying to rationalize it with the blip and Maria dying. The scene where you see Vision's like pulled the fuck apart. That's straight up a nod to West Coast Avengers. They see it. It's done differently, but it's the same thing. Like, Vision's all pulled apart and shit. So, but my big question is, what were they doing with him? Like, Vision has been dead for 5 years. And he talks about AI, robotics, nanotech. Like, what the fuck were they doing with him?
Well, it's hard too, because like, it's like he's made out of vibranium.
Mm-hmm. So he was in Wakanda.
Which, yeah. So it's like, which is also kind of like, which I kind of forgot. And when I went back to thinking, I was like, wow, Thanos was strong enough to just like shove his fingers through vibranium, which is wild on its own. But like, it was like, so it could be something like Wanda was maybe saving Vision from something they were doing they weren't supposed to doing because Vision didn't want to be a weapon, and they, I don't know, but it was nice. Yeah, and then Monica shows up, and the first thing he does is like kind of gets her out of there. It's almost like he didn't want her around.
Exactly.
So it's like, I don't know. Exactly. Like, yeah, we're not doing this. We're doing this now. We're not focusing on space. We're focusing on sentient. It's like there's. Yeah. I think it's pretty fucking clear they're not going to tell us anything until like the last episode or so.
Right, and I don't know if he's like directly involved with the manipulation part, but he's definitely not a good guy, and there's definitely more than what we're seeing with him, I think. Yeah.
And it's once again like, and then it sucks though too, because you kind of realize that like there's no one left to go to bat for Wanda right now.
Not really. Maybe Hawkeye, I guess.
Yeah, I mean
he's technically a fugitive, kind of. I mean, he was murdering people in the blip, so I don't really know what's up with.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, it's like so, and like so we know. And then we know like Rhodey's out there. Rhodey's going to show up in Falcon, and like what are Bucky and Falcon doing? Like why don't they know about this? What is Rhodey's going to show up in that? We know, but he's doing something. Like I feel like I honestly thought, and I know we'll talk about this later. I honestly was thinking like any minute now, Doctor Strange has to fucking realize what's going on and show up. Like I feel like it's inevitable. Like unless he's already so tied up with something. But who else can show up to contend with all this to like help? Really,
I have a little bit of an idea in that when we get to the ending.
Okay.
Also, I love the. Oh, does she have any sort of nickname, alias?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get a Scarlet Witch name drop by the end.
I mean, it'll be Darcy.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it'll probably be Darcy.
That's the big thing. No one really gets nicknames. Like obviously, Steve Rogers had Captain America, Tony Stark had Iron Man. I mean, Tom Holland had Spider-Man, but
he named himself.
Yeah, and he was unknown until the last movie. No one knew he was actually Peter Parker until the end of Far From Home. So that was to like hide his identity. But, like Hawkeye just said Hawkeye in Endgame talking about his daughter, like that no one calls him Hawkeye. I don't think Black Widow is even really called Black Widow. Maybe. I'd have to research that one, but maybe.
I don't, because when they said that about Wanda, I was like, "Fuck!" It never really occurred to me that like you've never really heard or called that. You've never really heard Clint.
And plus, and after the Sokovia Accords, like everyone is known. Well, most people now that I think new stuff is going to come out. Like obviously, it's going to be a lot different. It's just, and I do love how she's like, "Oh, this is violating the Sokovia Accords, taking Vision. It's also violating his living will." Because he didn't want to become a weapon again, which is interesting because he kind of contradicts that, being like, "Oh, he doesn't say they were experimenting on him, but you saw the fucking video; they were doing something with him."
It's kind of funny too that like no one was like, "Well, what the hell were they doing here?" And then it's also it's also kind of funny that like, I mean, they're still clinging to the Sokovia Accords after fucking Thanos and that big battle, and they saved everyone. It's like you're really gonna like split hairs now after they all just saved the fucking universe, like, and you're worried about that. Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's just like once again, but that's like indicative of the American government is to think that their stupid rules and what they care about supersedes like the fate of humanity itself. So that's I guess that does make sense to a degree because that's just the government.
Yeah, exactly. Then we kind of switch back into the house. The twins are hiding a dog. The dog's named Sparky, which is a direct nod to the Vision miniseries, except in that one, it's a synthezoid dog. Well, it was a real dog. Yeah, it was a real dog. And then they kill Vision's wife kills the Grim Reaper and buries him in the backyard. The dog finds it and he bites his scythe and electrocutes him and kills him. And then Vision remakes him into an android dog. But it's funny they did like the whole electrocution thing. It was a cute little nod. I was kind of hoping he'd be a green robot dog, but I can get why that would be a lot to kind of fit in, I guess. But I did love the nod because I just read that like a few months ago, and that the tone of that is very similar to the show. It's very dark and weird and mysterious. And also, I think Vision wearing a flannel is a nod. Like one of the covers is him wearing a flannel in front of a house. I mean, the whole suburbia thing is kind of similar. And they also do it in the Scarlet Witch and Vision miniseries. They moved to New Jersey and start a suburban life. So this is, I will say,
of like House of M and that.
All of them.
Yeah.
It's like anything it's Vision and Scarlet Witch centric, they have taken stuff from it. And I would say it's probably one of the most comic, like, inspired in a way. They are taking amalgamations of all of them, but not a lot of the MCU stuff is very comic-y. It's like an idea or a name, and they go off in their own way. But they're still doing it their own way, but it is very, very influenced by these runs.
I think that's what's so cool about the television universe is it's going to allow them to play with that a lot more without the bigger impact of like the studios having more control because they want it to be a movie hit and all this shit. And it makes me wonder, not to get off topic, but it makes me think like, there's not a whole lot of Winter Soldier lore, and I have a lot of the comics. There's not much for Bucky. He doesn't have a lot of standalone stuff. And And it just makes me think, I know that the Winter Soldier Falcon show will be a little shorter, but I can't help but wonder, and I don't know if like, 'cause, you know, Black Widow, we don't really know what happened. Black Widow died in the MCU. And I don't know if you're familiar, if you ever read the Hawkeye and Winter Soldier team up comic.
No.
It's great because in the comic, they both basically hate each other, but they have to team up because Nat is supposed to be dead, but Natasha shows up and they're trying to hunt down this so-called Natasha that turns out to be a different Black Widow, pretending to be her, doing all this shit. And they're on this like spy kind of mission thing. And I can't help but wonder if somehow Black Widow's not really dead, or we see the second her sister shows up and Bucky thinks it's her, and they kind of start taking from more of those comic influences like that. We start seeing more of that stuff. So it might be time, just kind of like with the Star Wars Legends books, to start really looking to the comics to predict what they're going to do.
Maybe it's possible. I know they like to be very unpredictable. That's why I think everyone's like, it's going to end like House of M. And I was like, it might, but I don't think the way you guys are think it's going to.
Yeah.
Especially because she's not going to say no more mutants. We don't know if there is mutants. So like, you can't say no more mutants when we don't know if there's
no more wizards.
Confirmed mutants, you know?
Too many wizards.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Mordo would love that shit, you know. Going back on my Mordo theory from last week.
I mean,
that's what he wants. He's like, I don't want any more sorcerers.
I mean, maybe Mordo is, maybe it could be too that like they want you to think it's Mephisto, but maybe Mordo is the one who wants to steal her powers because there's too many wizards. Maybe Mordo, like you were saying, maybe it's anybody's fucking game. I don't know.
It is, yeah, and we'll get into more crazy theories, like because this episode is crazy. So they have the dog. They're kind of like, oh, it's a lot of responsibility to take care of a living thing. Every time she talks to the kids, she's like almost talking about herself without realizing it.
Yeah,
you know, like so, you know, she's taking care of two twins that can grow, age whenever they want, and a puppeted synthezoid that she's fucking making do shit. I guess.
But she's like, you can't just back to life, and I'm like, oh, you can't, huh? Like, I'm just like...
And Vision comes in his human form, and you know, Wanda's like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I feel like someone's gonna stop by. Agnes stops by, drop of a hat again with a doghouse.
Yeah,
crazy. You know,
it's almost like Wanda with the dog the whole time, and then pretended to be.
Yeah. It's very you know, and they're like talking. They're like, oh yeah, you could be ready when you're 10, and then they age up to be 10. Nuts. Like, how the fuck is this happening?
How are they controlling it, or is like Wiccan controlling it? Like, I like how they dress them up in the colors.
Yep. Awesome touch to that. They had the comic accurate color scheme to their superhero outfits. And Vision says this very interesting line: we're usually very much of the same mind. Could be a reference to them both being connected with the Mind Stone, but they usually are on the same page. I guess except for that one scene in Civil War when they definitely were not on the same page. But this is my big thing, and the next part of this, I'll kind of get into it a little bit more, but it's, if it is Vision's dead body, like, is he really alive? And because in the next scene, we go back to Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy, and they figure out that she's actually rewriting reality. We get it confirmed that these aren't illusions in this bubble. She's actually reformatting matter into something else.
I think is to a degree, like they kind of showed in the trailer for the next episode that his body kind of going limp once it comes out of the vortex. They kind of already gave that.
Right.
So
but we don't know. They trick us with that shit. You know that.
What?
They trick us with that shit. They don't give away anything in trailers. You know what I mean? Like,
he walks out and he is still alive, and he's like, "What the fuck?" So it's like,
maybe, I don't know.
So
that's my biggest question with all of this. You know, it's like obviously Vision is very aware of like what's happening.
So his mind is there, and like also like, he gets mad. Like you almost think they're gonna fight for a minute.
Yeah,
she goes up in arms, so like he has to be real because he's a threat to her. Because she got like. When he was like, stop lying to me, and then she got up and like ignited her hands, like she wouldn't do that if he was no threat or no physical. Like he must physically be there to something. I don't know.
I hope we get more of those. I'm sure we'll get the answer to that.
I mean, what'd you say? There's 2 episodes or 3 episodes left?
There's 4, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, yeah.
4.
Oh, so we have plenty to go. Yeah.
Yeah. There's still a lot left, and Paul Bettany's said 6 is when stuff gets crazy. And like I said last week, if shit's crazier than this, what the fuck, Like,
and every time we get there, so next week is gonna be like
nuts. Yeah. But yeah, so Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy are talking. Monica's talking all these crazy scientific terms of maybe a way she can get back into the anomaly. And Darcy's like, do you really want to go back there? She's like, yes. Like, I don't think she trusts Wanda, like she sees something too, like us, like there's something else happening here other than Wanda just being all of it. There's something else here.
They kind of confirm that at the end, though.
Pretty much, sort of. She also makes this. She says, "I know an aerospace engineer that could be up for this task." Now, who is this aerospace engineer? There's been some fun theories online. My friend Brendan hit me up and was like, "Reed Richards," which seems to be a pretty popular internet theory.
Yep.
It could be Sue Storm, maybe.
It could be Ben Grimm. Isn't he a engineer?
They kind of all are. It could be Victor Von Doom. Maybe. It could be Riri Williams, Ironheart. She's coming up. That would kind of make sense.
That would be a good way to bring her in.
Yeah. So I'm very interested to see who that would be. Oh, I saw another idea. It could be the Skrull daughter from Captain Marvel.
Oh, that'd be cool. That would make a lot of sense. I would like that theory. The Reed Richards thing, the reason I think that I like that idea a lot is mainly just because unlike X-Men, we have confirmed Fantastic Four movie. Like, we know that's happening.
Yeah.
So that's going to any moment now, we're going to start seeing that sprinkled into places. But yeah, I mean, I don't fucking know, man. It's almost like the point where it's like, I'm almost just exhausted from having theories because I'm sick of being wrong.
Yeah. We haven't brought this up yet, but Elizabeth Olsen in an interview said there is a Luke Skywalker Mandalorian level cameo in this. And we'll get to the end of this episode. I do not think that's it, because there was rumors of him being cast, all that stuff. I don't think that's it. So, and we talked last week, and I said Magneto is kind of a stretch, but it's seeming a little more likely now.
Yeah,
Magneto or Professor X could be pretty likely, and that would be a huge cameo. Or, like we're talking about Reed Richards, if John Krasinski showed up and he's like, "Hey, I'm Reed Richards," like, that's massive.
Yeah,
that's obviously there's no lore to tie it back to like an old X-Men character or anything like that. But if John Krasinski showed up and he's like, "Yep, Reed Richards," like, dude, that would be insane.
It would break the internet.
100%. That would be nuts. Because
if they cast anybody but him to play him, I'm gonna be so fucking pissed. Like,
it has to be him and Emily Blunt. It has to be.
It has to be. It's too perfect.
It's like the biggest fan cast ever.
He has a great career, but nothing he's done would be bigger than that. So he and he could do it. I know he has the chops to do it.
It's so funny because I watched his SNL episode, and the whole opening monologue was just him being like, "Oh, Jim," pretending like, "Oh, he's done nothing but The Office," which obviously, I mean, like, Quiet Place is a huge hit.
Yep.
Even that Jack Ryan show is. I've never watched it, but everyone says it's great. And everything that he's done all these serious roles, and obviously he directed and helped write A Quiet Place and stuff like that. He's done a lot of really cool things.
It's time for him, and he's at the age when they start casting this shit.
Perfect.
Too. And like
he's like young enough, not too old.
He was almost Captain America.
Like, yeah, I guess he saw like Chris Hemsworth or something in the audition room, and he like left. It was something like that. Like he saw, like, he was like, I'm not cut out for this. Like, I'm out. It was just funny. They were making those like Jim references, where it's like that. This would be something that would level him out of Jim. You know what I mean? Like we've said, we've done, and especially like everyone like binge watched The Office again for the 1000th time during quarantine and everything. So that was the joke too. It's like, yeah, we've all been stuck inside for like a year, and everyone's just been watching The Office. So everyone just needs you to be Jim, and it was funny. But I thought it was I thought it was like kind of like funny timing. You know, they announced Fantastic Four, John Krasinski. He didn't really make any like nods to it, like he kind of did when he was doing that Some Good News show. He made like a weird like wink thing with it back then, like months ago. But we'll see, I guess.
I think we're gonna get Doctor Strange. That's my hope, at least. That's one theory.
Yeah.
And I think the big reveal is gonna be like Reed Richards or Magneto or something. Like I feel like though if it's Luke Skywalker level or whatever the fuck she's saying, it's gotta be like something I don't like, unless there's something I'm not thinking of. You know?
Yeah, like the big ones for me are Professor X or Magneto would be huge. Like if it's Patrick Stewart or Ian McKellen or Fassbender as Magneto. My only thing with Ian McKellen, he's so old.
They're saying that Fassbender was cast as something, but like they say not Magneto, but that might have been a misdirect because he is Magneto. And if they're brought back fucking him, so now that we heard a rumor about Evan Peters, that was true. We heard is he playing Quicksilver though? Yes, we heard. What we think.
We don't know.
But
we'll get to that later.
But it's like I don't know, man. I'm starting to think that like Fassbender could show up.
He could.
I'm down for James McAvoy to show up and be like, I'm here to help you. Like, but you know what I mean? I don't know. Like,
I love James McAvoy. It's just those movies suffered from not being that good at movies. Some of them, I love First Class, but
he could carry.
Oh yeah,
like for sure.
And that was the thing. I would be bummed if it was Ian McKellen because he was too old when those movies came out.
Yeah.
So
it won't.
You know what I mean? I don't want Magneto to come in and be introduced and he's just super old. Like I just don't want that.
It won't be. If Fassbender isn't playing Doctor Doom, I'm willing to bet money he's playing Magneto. If he is really cast, like you know what I mean.
It's definitely possible. Also, we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but they make them reference to Wanda being able to take out Thanos. And Captain Marvel held her own too, or whatever. And then Monica does not look happy when Captain Marvel's name gets mentioned at all. She like quickly changes the subject, does not look stoked when her name is said. It makes me think either like she never really came back to Earth, or when she did come back to Earth, she didn't really check her on her and her mom. Yep. And maybe she's like, blaming her death on her or something.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they'll probably explain that more in Captain Marvel 2 if I had to guess. But I found that very interesting. And is the same thing in Far From Home when Peter Parker mentions Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, which we now know was Talos, says, don't invoke her name. Like, is there some weird beef that happened in these like 30 years between the events of Captain Marvel and present? Like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, everyone's got beef with Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Including my wife.
We don't know what the fuck she's been dealing with on the other side of the galaxy. Like,
very true.
So much shit could be happening.
Yeah. I mean, you can't forget your friends, though, man. Come on.
I mean, she showed up for Endgame, so she was just there not that long ago on Earth.
That's what I mean. Like, and obviously, Monica just came back, but it's like, I'm guessing she didn't even try and look for her or something. You
got to think when she got snapped back, like within an hour was when Captain Marvel was fighting Thanos of that hospital. Yeah.
But she was there after that, like she was at Tony Stark's funeral.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that wasn't the day after,
She probably just never visited her.
Yeah. There's got to be some lingering things there. But it is interesting that the battle of Endgame is public knowledge, or at least government knowledge or whatever. Like they know exactly what happened. It's pretty wild.
Well, there were kind of like 1,000 people there.
I mean, but they're all kind of like superheroes or something,
Yeah. It's not like the government can control what people from Wakanda or like the wizards are saying, or doing. Yeah. And like, it's, oh man, it's
wild. It's very cool. I like seeing like the real world ramifications of stuff that's happening. You know what I mean? Like I've liked that a lot.
They really are making the MCU as big as the comic universe now. It's like every little
it's massive
is no longer a side character. Like,
Yeah, and we go back to Vision's work, which I don't think we visited since episode 1. And they get an email. They have a Commodore 64 set up, and they get that email from Sword that they all read out loud and laugh about, which was super fucking weird. And then he wakes up Norm, very Wolverine-esque of House of M, like he doesn't remember everything. That was the kind of thing with Wolverine. He remembered everyone, and then the little girl kind of wakes everyone up. But it's kind of the same role in a way. Like I feel like he's going to be the key to more of this, breaking apart even more and more. And I love the horror vibes in the show. Like sometimes they're very subtle, and then sometimes they're very in your face. And this definitely was, he's freaking out, saying they're in pain. And even when Hayward was interviewing Monica, she said she felt like she was like drowning. She felt excruciating pain, and she like felt Wanda's grief. And that's what I love about the show too. It's exploring grief on a very insane level. Yeah. And there's even a shot when Monica says grief, you see a new shot of Wanda, and it looks like she was kind of in the same clothes as when she went and got Vision's corpse. I'm very interested to see. I think we'll revisit how this all started, obviously, by the end. We'll see how.
We're going to see a flash. Whatever it is, it must have something to do with how she got her powers to begin with. Because we saw that clip of her, like, getting her powers in the trailer.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be two separate things, but we're definitely going to see more to this story. All of it starting to piece together in a way. Like I said, they keep asking more questions. Like, last week it's who's the missing person? Is it Ralph? Maybe. Who is Ralph? And now it's like, who is the aerospace engineer? How is Vision still alive? How are the twins aging up? And like,
and my other thing is like, if she can't control them, it must be because she didn't make them. That's what makes me feel it's weird. Like,
maybe
my brain is like, they're real, but like, why can't she control them? Is it because they're just too powerful, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's again another question. And when Vision wakes up Norm, he says, "You need to stop her." And obviously, we're being made to believe that it's Wanda. I do not think the her he's referring to is Wanda. It could be Agnes. It could be Dottie. They show the board again with all the pictures and the IDs. Agnes still not ID'd. Dottie not up there. And they added the mailman who has been ID'd as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And like Agnes said, Dottie's the key to this town. And like, is Dottie someone we don't know? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, they're redirecting us in all these ways. We'll see how it all ends up.
So I did see a pop figure spoiler it's a Halloween thing. I don't know if you want me to tell you this. It was a pop action figure thing that's coming out of the twins dressed up for Halloween. Do you want to know?
Oh, are they just dressed up in their comic accurate stuff?
No, they're dressed up as Quicksilver, and Wiccan looks like Wiccan, but I'm assuming they're dressed up as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch or whatever. But I wonder.
Quicksilver's like outfit looks a lot like Quicksilver's. It's very similar.
It's all blue. It's all blue, and then but Wiccan but their Halloween. It's like it's pops of their Halloween costumes, and Wiccan looks like Wiccan, and then Speed looks like Quicksilver, not like Speed. So I'm interested to see if that's what we're going to be getting, some crazy shit like them getting powers in the next episode, or I don't fucking know. It's just like
maybe next week is the Halloween episode, so we'll see. I've been saying next week's the Halloween episode for like 3 weeks, so I'm sorry, but it's actually next week. It's actually next week. So yeah, who is her? Is it Wanda? I don't think so, but like I said, we're like halfway now, a little over, and they're like them being like, it's Wanda, painting Wanda as the bad guy, this whole thing. Like, it's too obvious for this show. And they get the idea to fly in the 80s drone. Obviously it goes in, and Wanda goes out and hears it. And then she comes out of the fucking anomaly full in Scarlet Witch attire from Endgame and Infinity War, throws the fucking drone at them. And she says, like, like her and Monica have this back and forth, like, hey, you let me into your home. You must know I'm an ally at some point, which is a very good point. And it's like maybe Monica's grief kind of brought her into that bubble, like with her mom and like losing her mom while she was gone and everything like that. So maybe that's what kind of brought her in. It's like they had that like common bond of grief. And, once she said something that was kind of messing with her perfect world, that's when she's like, nope, see ya. But Monica says, like, I survived because she protected me. another very interesting thing, you know, and you see the red glow around her. Like, it seemed like she was pretty unfazed, even getting thrown through.
She survived because she got powers and just doesn't know it.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah.
And
I agree with what you're saying, though, like, as a whole.
Yeah. And, you know, she's like, what do you want? And Wanda goes, I have everything I want, and no one's going to take it from me again. And then looks at Hayward, very weird. Like, I do not think this is the first time that Wanda and Hayward have interacted. And she calls him director. So again, there's more to fucking Hayward. And how does Wanda find out that Vision's even at Sword? You know, like, again, this is all like, it's all starting to slowly come together. And then in a fucking insanely badass scene, she mind controls everyone to point her guns at Hayward, not at Monica, mind you. Yep. But that's a very Magneto X-Men 1 move.
Yep.
You know, like, very cool Easter egg that points to Magneto in a way. I love that. That scene was so sick.
It was so great. And you really realize that she's just like, no one can fuck with her. Like, there's no, like, or like, you know, it's like, but she's like, and that's why my brain thinks, like, if it's coming down to some kind of showdown with Wanda, Doctor Strange has to get mixed in. But
yeah,
like, that's why I thought the doorbell was going to be him being like, or like, I think
it's too early.
Too early down, and then some shit's gonna be going down, and you're gonna see the like, and then also he's gonna be, or you know, so no one can. She's gonna be like, no one can stop me, and then he's just gonna be like, you sure about that? And like, boom, like, and then like, it's gonna be fucking Wanda, Doctor Strange, Sorcerer battle. I don't fucking know.
I'm down.
Maybe she's the villain of Multiverse. Like, for all we know.
That's what I've been saying.
Like, yeah, it's like, I don't. Yeah, fuck. You did say that.
And each week it's getting more and more apparent that she could be the villain of that. She's showing a very villainous side, very Age of Ultron times like 10, you know? Like,
yeah, I thought it was gonna be them teaming up and him like training her to control her powers, and now I'm starting to think that's not what it is at all.
I think she might be one of the main villains, and I'll get more into the implications of that in a little bit. We get the commercial break, which is Lagos Paper Towels, which is obviously them talking about, like, there's another interesting theory I thought about the commercials I'll bring up in just a second, but they're all dealing with her past trauma. Yep. Every single thing. And Lagos is when she tried to control Crossbones' suicide, blowing himself up, and then she ends up blowing up a building full of people from Wakanda trying to help people, which obviously led to the Sokovia Accords directly. More things than just that. They do reference Germany early in their episode, which is obviously the airport fight scene from Civil War as well. Yep. And I did see this very interesting theory that, yes, they are dealing with Wanda's grief, all in their own different ways. Like, she's had a fucked up life, like, for sure. You know what I mean? Like, lost her parents at 10, you know, got experimented with Hydra, lost her brother, lost Vision, disappeared for 5 years, came back. Like, it's been a mess. It's not been a good life for Wanda Maximoff. I feel bad for her. So no wonder she's, you know, creating this perfect universe where she has what she wants. But
I also feel like, I think there's definitely something or someone fucked with her or messed with her to set her off, because like, whether it's 100%. Whoever involved with the illusion or it was Hayward, because she doesn't go from being like, they know I'm at peace, to all of a sudden like, I'm gonna break into shit and go crazy.
That's what we talked about last week too. You know, like, in that 3-week gap, there's definitely something that happened that triggered all of this. Yep. For sure. But the theory I saw is that each commercial has been related to an Infinity Stone, which is very interesting. I did mention how in the the Hydra soak, it looked like it was sitting like the Tesseract, the watch and the Strucker watch, obviously time, the toaster. Someone said it's kind of like the Power Stone, because of like a bomb, and it's like they were saying it's like a powerful device and stuff like that. And then this one, red liquid, the ether, reality, like, you know, fix a mistake you didn't mean to make, like, change reality to how you didn't do it, which is, we have 2 more left. So I guess we can continue on that as we see these last 2. If they do relate to the Mind Stone and the Soul Stone, I guess we'll see. But I thought that was a really cool theory that, I mean, it kind of adds up in a way, for sure.
Are we we're gonna talk about the thing that we were all waiting to talk about, or we have one more thing?
Yeah, so
I keep trying not to say something about it because my brain keeps going back to that.
No, I know it was a very, very huge reveal for sure. And then we get the twins going back. We find out that Sparky ate some azalea leaves and died. And Agnes looks very scared and worried and genuinely sad that the dog died. And it's funny because in the Vision comics, he does eat this plant. That's not what kills him. One of the kids like beats up the dog or it was his wife, I can't remember, but they eat this plant that it's like a Wendigo flower or something like that. But once you eat it, you can see the future. And she was afraid that Vision would like get information from the dog, so they killed the dog and they found the flower in it. And it's a very dark miniseries. Yeah. That's why I'm saying like the vibes from that are like, obviously it's not the same because Vision has like a synthezoid family, but it's funny because the wife, her brainwaves are like formatted off Wanda's.
Yeah.
And Wanda does get involved near the end and stuff like that, but it is a very dark book. If you guys are into comics, like I would definitely read that. It's only 12 issues. You can buy the trade easily wherever you buy comic books. They probably have it or can order it for you. And it's a very, very cool read. Tom King is amazing. He's shackled to DC now, but he's doing some really cool stuff at DC too. Anyway, so the dog's dead, and then the twins earlier bring up like, "Oh, do you have a brother, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, he's far away, and I don't see him, and that makes me sad." Obviously, she's like glossing over the fact that he's fucking dead, and they say like, "You can fix the dead. You can." They're like, "Bring him back, Mom," and it's like they're not talking about the dog. They're talking about Pietro. Like 100%. Like that's like the whole thing is like she can't control the twins, and the twins are also influencing her decisions like Agnes was in earlier episodes. Like, is this whole thing to create the twins? Like, I don't know. I need to know. Like, who is tricking them into making this stuff happen?
Like, what's their whole play on like the recast? You know, it's like, why was that subconscious in her mind? Was it someone else doing it? Was it just their way of writing it so they could recast Evan Peters? Like, you know, how are we?
Maybe. And before, like, the one last thing is her and Vision have that conversation, and they're like fully, you know, Vision says, "You can't control me like you control them." He knows what's going on, at least to an extent, that everyone's under like her spell, or, you know, he doesn't know that maybe someone tricked her. He thinks it's all her. And he's like, "Why are you doing this? This is wrong. These people have their own lives. Like, what are you doing?" She tries to fucking roll the credits on him, and he's like, "No." And they have that altercation like we were talking about. And then she calms down. She's like, "Hey, like, you know, isn't this family enough for you?" And he can't remember anything that's happened before this, which is also interesting. I wonder if that's because the Mind Stone got ripped out of his head. That's why he doesn't remember anything from the past, or they wiped his memory, or she wiped his memory. Maybe. Again, another question that we have no idea to. And then the doorbell rings, and then the door opens, and it's Evan Peters as Pietro, which the whole recast thing you're talking about. And Darcy even says like they recast Pietro, like very meta like thing. And it's like, for one, it's a sitcom trope of how people get recast all the time, and an MCU trope, how people get recast all the time. You know, like, obviously, Rhodey got recast, and the Hulk got recast with, you know, no explanation. It just happened. Obviously, it was more like contract stuff and behind the scenes stuff, but they obviously do not acknowledge it in the movie world. But here's the big thing.
Well, Deadpool's coming, so the fourth wall will be broken again. So,
I mean, they're already breaking the fourth wall, like literally. Like, I mean, they broke Monica with the fourth wall. The show is so meta, it's insane. I love it. It's not Deadpool meta, it's a different kind of meta for sure. But it's either, like she said, when she says you can't bring people back from the dead when she was talking to the twins, I think she means that she can't bring living people back to life, which could be true, which also adds to the question of how the twins even happened. And Vision isn't a person, he's a synthezoid. So that kind of explains, like, if she is like reanimating him, like, he is matter. So that kind of makes sense. And so here's the question. We don't even know if Wanda did this. It could be the other person that we're talking about. Like, there's someone else. I fully believe this. Like, there's way too much of like Wanda's the bad guy for her to be like the full answer for this. there's definitely someone who's been manipulating her. And like I said last week, I think the missing person, who may be Ralph, is the key to all of this. And Hayward may be involved in some way, shape, or form. I just think he's the bad guy. I don't think he's like fully evolved, but I feel like he was aware of what was happening to some extent.
You got to think like she might not have brought anyone back to life. She might have just created them. Like she didn't have to.
She might have pulled him from a different reality.
Yeah, like she can't bring him back, but she just stole a Quicksilver from another world.
And another thing is, they're in the 80s. When Quicksilver gets introduced in the X-Men movies, it was the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's like, did they pull, like, obviously time is very skewed in the Anomaly, so we don't really know what's up with that. Even Vision mentions that. It's like, yeah, let's watch TV and go to sleep so you can change everything over again. Like, again, he's like fully aware of what the fuck's going on. And here's the thing though, like, did the multiverse officially get firmed? Like, obviously everyone's like, this leads into Multiverse of Madness. And Mysterio teased the multiverse, but obviously he was lying.
Yeah.
But if she did pull this from the multiverse, this happens before Spider-Man Far From Home, and this kind of creates these leaks of multiverses coming into their universe and everything like that. It would explain what's all these casting rumors of Spider-Man 3. It would explain how J. Jonah Jameson is in Spider-Man Far From Home. It would make a lot of sense. Or it's a different form of Quicksilver to trick Wanda, to give her another distraction like how Vision was, to, you know, add to this whole whoever is helping with this to get whatever they want out of Wanda, give her another distraction to add to that. Like she gets her brother back. It's not the brother she remembers, but it's her brother, and he's really someone else. Could it be Mephisto? Maybe. I don't know. Could he just be someone else, like being shapeshifted into something? Like, I don't know. I kind of hope it is the Quicksilver, because I do want that multiverse thing finally cemented.
Yeah, I also just want Quicksilver, because we never really got to have Quicksilver in the MCU, really.
Yeah, I'm for a movie.
And like Wanda, like this Quicksilver is like full on Quicksilver, where we got nerfed Quicksilver because they were just powers. They were just starting out. Like both of them hadn't powerful they were going to be. And granted, Quicksilver never becomes as powerful as like the Flash is, but he's more powerful than Evan Peters was in the X-Men movie. He was pretty fucking strong and he was pretty fast. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like I want it. It's like as much as I want Evan Peters, like more than anything, I just want Quicksilver back in the MCU because he didn't get his fair shot. And this is the perfect excuse to do that.
Yeah, and another thing, it would be wild if Aaron Taylor Johnson shows up later on in the series too. Yeah. Like that would be sick. I would love to see that.
I would love to have him come back. I would love for either, you know what I mean? And I would love, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't fucking know. I feel like I'm never going to know.
I know. And that's the whole thing we've talked about this whole episode. It's like, we don't, like everyone, I myself was like, oh, the multiverse is here, but it's like, is it really? We don't know. Because like we said, this show is constantly tricking us and like misdirecting us. And I mean, that's the MCU as a whole. I mean, like I said, they did it in Far From Home. He mentions multiverse in the trailer and then it wasn't real. He was lying. Like, as we know, though, the multiverse is happening. Like the stuff Cap did, the stuff Loki did, even the stuff they did in Endgame probably created branch realities. Yeah. And even like if S.H.I.E.L.D. gets, you know, tied in eventually sometime, like the shit they did definitely fucked up a whole lot of time shit for sure, because they did a lot of time meddling.
And like I think more so like the like maybe like, you know, it's like I think J. Jonah Jameson, like I think that's just this Earth's J. Jonah Jameson, where the Sam Raimi is from a different Earth kind of thing. Where like that's why they're recasting all Doc Ock and all of them. It's just going to be the Tom Holland universe versions of these characters in different lives.
Alfred Molina from those movies is supposed to be rumored to be in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, you know, I know. Yeah, he is. He already confirmed he's been doing roles, but I mean, like, he might not be. He might just be playing like in this universe. Dr. Ock never became Doc Ock, maybe for not yet. And so it just makes me think like, what if, for all we fucking know, some crazy shit happened when she first got her powers and her brother was already dead and the Aaron Taylor Johnson we saw wasn't even really Quicksilver, and Evan Peters was, and she pulled him out of a fucking universe way back when. I don't fucking know.
I think it's a little too much.
Yeah, you say that. We always overthink some of the wrong things and then don't pay attention. Some of the more obvious things. Yeah, so I don't know. You never know. It's like they could do anything they want and justify it.
That is fair. And my friend John was texting me saying, like, is that our first official mutant in the MCU? Which maybe, because they haven't really, they've been kind of backdoor redefining Wanda now that they have the rights to the word mutant. In the Wakanda Files book, they're like, oh, the Mind Stone activated something in her that made her get powers. You know, it's like, that's like saying X gene without saying X gene, you know, and obviously the twins are in the comics are mutants. So I still think the word mutants will be said by the end of this series.
Yeah, and I mean, Magneto could show up and she could be like, "Father, like I thought you were dead." Like a fucking, you know.
Well, if that's the case, it would be different because they said her parents' names and it was like whatever Maximoff. And I still do think that the people in the commercial are her parents, and it's like her subconscious creating them in the commercials to like deal with her drama or her trauma. It's like her parents are, you know, interconnected with her trauma and everything.
Or it wasn't her blood parents and they were taken.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, because that's kind of what happens in the comics. She has like parents, but they aren't her birth parents. And then it's later revealed that Magneto was her dad.
Yeah.
So it could be something like that if Magneto is the big cameo. And that's like the other thing. Like, is the big cameo the real villain of this? Or is it something else like Reed Richards? Like, the possibilities are honestly endless. Like, after this happening, like, obviously Evan Peters was rumored to be a part of this, and people were like, oh, is he going to be Quicksilver, or is he going to be like Mephisto or someone else, or who knows? Like, him being Mephisto makes sense, especially with like American Horror Story and everything like that. It's kind of like a similar vibe. That's like, I think that's why everyone's freaking out, because I feel like everyone didn't know that there was a casting rumor, or didn't think that Disney would do that, you know, like, oh yeah, here's the Quicksilver from that universe. Like, it's a crazy move. Like,
I mean, they did conveniently just put all those movies on Disney Plus. So
yeah, well, I mean, they have the rights to them, and I think they're slowly putting them back on now that the licensing for other streaming services get let up. Because like Dark Phoenix is still on HBO Max and shit like that. Yep. So they're like slowly waiting for all of these movies to lose their streaming rights to other places so they can put them up. But another thing, if this is Quicksilver from the other X-Men universe and it is the multiverse, like I've been saying for a long time, that I think they're going to make all of the past Marvel movies canon, but an alternate reality.
Exactly.
Would add to this if that's the case. And it would add to the Spider-Man 3 rumors and news that obviously they're not going to let us know if it's real or not until it happens.
They said it was the most ambitious movie, single superhero movie. Tom Holland said ambition standalone superhero movie yet, and that's aside from Civil War. So it's like, and then not to mention, it's like he got asked in the interviews and he dodges all these questions around Andrew Garfield.
He knows
he wouldn't dodge the questions if it wasn't happening. He'd just be like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
They've trained him now. They're like, don't say anything, you little fucker. Like,
yeah, you little fuck.
I love how he's been dancing around. It's cool to see how different people are like trained in their interviews. I like watching the interviews because they give nothing away. And it's funny because even the interviewers like, I know you can't give anything away, but like, can you give anything away? And they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know, like Elizabeth Olsen was like the whole time, she's like, even if there was these Easter eggs, I wouldn't even understand them. And it's like, then you see that interview from 6 years ago on the Age of Ultron junket.
She's
like if
they did it,
if they did a House of M thing and she like went crazy and broke reality, that'd be nuts. But I don't think they'd ever do it. And I'm like, you know, these Easter eggs, if you knew, like you did your research when you got that role 100%. If you were citing House of M 60 years ago, you know, like that's awesome. I love that.
That was such a hot nerd flex when that interview too. I was like, man, she knows.
Yeah.
I was like, it's like
100%.
But
I sprinkled in the Easter eggs while we were talking rather than listing them all at the end. So I kept it more natural rather than listing them at the very end. So is there anything else you want to add until we unpatiently wait for next week and see what the fuck else craziness happens?
I think that I think we're like ready. I think the stage is set for shit to go down. So
yeah, 100%. It's we're ready for shit to get real wild, even though it's been, to me, since like episode 3, things have been pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like they said, full scale MCU. Like, I think, I mean, they always do shit we think they're never gonna do. Well,
Yeah,
you always
100%.
think they're not gonna do this. They're not gonna do this, and it's like there's no reason to think we might not see fucking 5 different Avengers show up at the end of this.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I'm saying?
very
Like,
possible.
like there's nothing saying that like we won't see fucking Bucky, Falcon, and Rhodey and Doctor Strange all show up to try to fucking combat whatever's happening. Like, we don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. We have no idea who's going to show up at this point.
Back when Tony got cast for Civil War, I mean, that was back. We thought we weren't going to see Tony in a movie ever again, and meanwhile, they planned to have him for 4 more fucking movies. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember being so surprised he was even doing another movie, not even knowing that they still had like the biggest shit hadn't come yet, and
they had his death planned by then.
Yeah,
it's like when they were prepping for Civil War, that's when they told Robert Downey Jr. like, hey, you're gonna die at the end of this, at the end of like this whole Infinity Saga thing, like, and he's like, all right, like he knew back then. That's crazy.
Yeah, you know what, I took that interview as like they always knew that they were gonna do House of M eventually. Like, they always knew they were gonna do that whole arc at some end. Like, I think they probably had those plans for that character from the get-go, and she knew that in her contract or something. She didn't know how.
Maybe. Yeah.
But she almost did it like she was like, I'll never do that. Like they're gonna do that.
It's hard to say because that was obviously her introduction to the MCU. So it's like usually they don't sign multi-year deals unless they're like pretty big names. So it's hard to tell. Like we don't know because that's like officially when like the Infinity Saga was like fully taking form was Age of Ultron, because there was all of that chatter with like problems with Joss Whedon. Like they had to like argue stuff to like, because this is when it had to end up leading to Thanos, so they had to plant shit in for it to make sense, you know. But who knows? We'll never know, probably.
I feel like I need every year I stay alive, it's just for more MCU and Star Wars shit.
That's what Kevin Smith says. Pretty much, he's like, I gotta stay alive long enough for that.
Yeah, I gotta stay alive long enough to see the next 10 years of these movies. Like,
I mean, I'm here for it for sure. Okay. I love this shit. Obviously, I spend hours every week talking to people about it.
I'm super excited. I can't wait to see the mind fuckery that we're about to go through. Like, I'm ready to just be caught off guard over and over and over again. Like, and just same. God knows what I'm even more excited for Falcon and Winter Soldier now.
Oh, me too. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that spy drama.
Bro, it's gonna be like, I can't wait for fucking Bourne Identity with Winter Soldier. Like,
yeah, hell yeah. I love Bucky so much. I love Falcon too. So I'm
just so ready for it to get some merchandise, more Winter Soldier merchandise. Now that he'll be more of a household name after this too, because like I scrounge, dude. Like I every time like one little thing comes out, I'm like sick because like there's just not much. I don't even think I've ever seen a Winter Soldier T-shirt. It's
There'll
like
definitely be some coming out for this for sure.
Yeah, I'm hyped.
Hell yeah, man! All right, I'll see you next week. We'll do this all over again.
See you guys later.
See you guys.